The fluorescent lights of the Riverside Mall hummed overhead as Sarah Mitchell knelt before her 7-year-old daughter Emma in the toy store's Barbie aisle. Behind them, security guard Marcus Chen stood at attention, though his trained composure couldn't quite hide the concern flickering in his dark eyes. Sarah's hands trembled as she held Emma's small fingers, her perfectly manicured nails, a remnant of the life she'd lived just 6 months ago, now chipped at the edges. The black blazer she wore had been tailored for boardrooms and power lunches, not for moments like this. Not for goodbyes. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Emma's voice carried that particular quality of childhood innocence that could shatter even the strongest resolve. Her blonde ponytail swayed as she tilted her head, confusion dancing in eyes that mirrored Sarah's own. "Baby, I need you to listen very carefully to me," Sarah whispered, fighting to keep her voice steady. The walls of Barbie boxes seemed to close in around them, hundreds of plastic smiles in pink packaging, frozen in eternal optimism. "Do you remember what we talked about? About how sometimes mommies have to go away for a little while?" Emma's lower lip quivered. "But you said we were just shopping. You promised we'd get ice cream after." The knife of guilt twisted deeper into Sarah's chest. She had promised. She'd promised so many things. A stable home, a normal childhood, a mother who would always be there. "I know, sweetheart, and I wish." Sarah's voice broke. She closed her eyes, drawing in a shaking breath. Behind her, Marcus shifted his weight, checking his watch. They didn't have much time. It had been exactly 42 days since Sarah's world imploded. 42 days since she'd discovered the truth about her husband Richard's business associates. 42 days since the FBI had shown up at their suburban home with a warrant and questions she couldn't answer. 42 days since she realized that her picture-perfect life had been built on a foundation of lies, money laundering, and crimes she'd been too naive, or too willfully blind, to see. The plea deal had been her only option. Testify against Richard and his associates, cooperate fully with the investigation, and she'd serve minimal time. Refuse, and she'd go down with them, branded as complicit in a scheme that had defrauded thousands of families of their life savings. But the deal came with a price: immediate detention while the trial proceeded. No more supervised visits. No more phone calls once she was transferred to the federal facility tomorrow. The prosecution couldn't risk any possibility of witness tampering, they'd said. As if Sarah would do anything to jeopardize the chance to eventually return to her daughter. Emma would go to Sarah's sister in Ohio. Good, reliable Christine, who'd warned Sarah about Richard from the beginning, who'd seen through his charm and expensive suits to something hollow underneath. Christine would provide a stable home, would love Emma fiercely. But Christine wasn't Emma's mother. "Emma, look at me." Sarah cupped her daughter's face, memorizing every freckle, every eyelash. "I have to go away for a while. Not because I want to, but because I have to make something right. Something very wrong happened, and I'm the only one who can help fix it." "Is it because of Daddy?" Emma's question was so quiet Sarah almost didn't hear it over the mall's piped-in music. Something cheerful and mindless that felt obscene in this moment. Sarah's heart clenched. Emma had always been perceptive, even as a toddler. She'd noticed the late-night arguments, the way Richard's phone calls would send him pacing outside, the parade of lawyers who'd started appearing at their house. "Yes, baby, it's because of Daddy. But I need you to understand something very important." Sarah pulled Emma closer, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, a smell she'd have to hold in her memory for the next 18 months. "None of this is your fault. You were the best, brightest, most perfect thing that ever happened to me. You were my whole heart, Emma. Do you understand that?" Tears streamed down Emma's cheeks now. "I don't want you to go. Please don't go. I'll be good, I promise. I'll be so good." "Oh, sweetheart." Sarah pulled her daughter into her arms, holding her with the desperation of a drowning person clinging to driftwood. You are good. You're perfect. This isn't about you being good or bad. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes have consequences. Marcus cleared his throat gently. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm sorry, but we really need to. I know. Sarah's voice was sharp, harsher than she intended. She looked up at Marcus, this stranger who'd been assigned to shadow her final hours of freedom, and saw unexpected compassion in his face. He was young, maybe 30, and something about the way he averted his eyes told her this wasn't easy for him either. She turned back to Emma, whose small frame shook with silent sobs. Listen to me, baby girl. Aunt Christine is going to pick you up in a few minutes. You're going to go stay with her and Uncle Mark and your cousins. They love you so much. And I'm going to write you letters every single day. Every single day, I promise. And you can write me back, and draw me pictures, and tell me about school and your friends and everything. But when will you come home? Emma's voice rose, desperation creeping into her words. When, Mommy, when? Sarah couldn't answer immediately. 18 months minimum, the lawyers had said. Maybe 24, depending on the trial timeline and her cooperation. To a 7-year-old, that might as well be forever. As soon as I possibly can, Sarah finally said. And until then, I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that? Can you be my brave girl? Emma nodded, but her eyes told a different story, a story of abandonment and confusion that would require years of therapy to unpack. Sarah knew that. She'd condemned her daughter to that with her choices, with her willful blindness to Richard's activities. I want you to pick out a Barbie, Sarah said suddenly, standing and reaching for her purse. Any one you want. We're going to buy it right now, and you can keep it with you. And whenever you miss me, you can hold it and remember that I love you more than anything in this world. Emma's eyes drifted to the shelves, but the joy that should accompany such a pronouncement was absent. Still, she was 7, and the pull of the toys was strong even through her tears. She walked slowly down the aisle, her small hand trailing along the boxes, before stopping at a particular doll. It was a Dr. Barbie, complete with a white coat and stethoscope. Emma had always been fascinated by medicine, by helping things that were hurt or broken. Sarah felt her throat tighten as Emma pulled the box from the shelf. This one, Emma said softly. So she can fix things. The metaphor wasn't lost on Sarah. That's perfect, baby. She can fix things, just like you're going to fix and heal and grow into an amazing person. They walked to the register together, a small procession of pain. The mother, the daughter, and the security guard who carried the weight of enforcing a system that sometimes broke families apart in the pursuit of justice. As Sarah paid, using one of the few credit cards that hadn't been frozen by the investigation, Marcus kept a respectful distance. She appreciated that he'd given them this moment, that he hadn't rushed them despite his clear discomfort with the situation. The cashier, a teenage girl with purple highlights and bored eyes, barely looked up as she scanned the doll. She didn't see the tragedy unfolding in front of her, didn't notice the way Emma clutched the box like a life preserver or the way Sarah's hands shook as she signed the receipt. Outside the store, Christine was waiting near the mall's central fountain. Sarah's older sister looked tired. She'd driven 4 hours from Ohio that morning, had rearranged her entire life to accommodate her sister's daughter, and hadn't complained once. The guilt Sarah felt at her sister's goodness was almost unbearable. Hey, pumpkin, Christine said, kneeling down to Emma's level. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes, when they met Sarah's over Emma's head, held a mixture of pity and something else. Anger, maybe, or disappointment that Sarah had let things get this bad. Aunt Christine, Mommy got me a Dr. Barbie, Emma said, her voice small. That's wonderful, sweetie. Why don't we go get some ice cream, just you and me? Would you like that? Emma looked back at Sarah, confusion and hurt warring on her face. But Mommy was supposed to get ice cream with me. The broken promise hung in the air between them. Sarah knelt again, pulling Emma close one final time. She breathed in her daughter's scent, felt the small arms wrap around her neck, tried to memorize the weight and shape of her child in her arms. I love you, Emma Rose Mitchell, she whispered fiercely. I love you more than all the stars in the sky. Don't ever forget that, not for 1 second. Mommy made some mistakes, but loving you was never one of them. You were the best thing I ever did right. I love you too, Mommy. Emma's voice was muffled against Sarah's shoulder. Please come back soon. I will. I promise. That's one promise I'll never break. Sarah forced herself to let go, to stand, to watch as Christine took Emma's hand. Her daughter looked back 3 times as they walked away, each backward glance a fresh wound. The 4th time, Christine picked Emma up, holding her close as the little girl finally broke down completely, her wails echoing through the mall's atrium. Sarah stood frozen in place, watching until they disappeared around the corner toward the parking garage. Marcus stood beside her, maintaining his professional distance but offering silent support through his presence. I have a daughter, he said quietly. She's 5. I can't imagine. He stopped, seeming to realize that his empathy, while well-intentioned, might make this harder. But Sarah appreciated it. In a world that had become increasingly cold and transactional, lawyers discussing plea deals, prosecutors treating her testimony like a commodity, Richard's former friends treating her like a traitor, Marcus's simple humanity was a lifeline. Thank you, she managed, for giving us that time. He nodded. We should go. They're expecting us at the facility by 6 for processing. The drive to the federal detention center took 40 minutes through rush hour traffic. Sarah sat in the back of Marcus's unmarked sedan, watching suburban Chicago roll past the window, strip malls and office parks, soccer fields where children played under the supervision of parents who hadn't destroyed their lives, restaurants where families gathered for normal Tuesday dinners. Her phone buzzed with a text from Christine. She's calm now. We're getting ice cream like you planned. She picked mint chip. Said it was your favorite. We'll be okay, Sarah. Focus on getting through this. Sarah typed back with shaking fingers. Thank you. For everything. Tell her I love her. Every day, Christine responded. I promise. The detention center loomed ahead. A squat, brutal building of concrete and razor wire that would be her home for the foreseeable future. Sarah had toured it once with her lawyer, preparing for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare you for voluntarily surrendering your freedom. Mrs. Mitchell, Marcus said as he pulled into the facility's secure entrance. I know this doesn't mean much, but for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Taking responsibility, protecting your daughter, making sure the people who hurt others face justice. That takes courage. Sarah laughed, a bitter sound devoid of humor. Courage. I was a coward for years. I saw things, suspected things about Richard's business, and I looked the other way because I liked our lifestyle. The house, the cars, the private schools. I chose comfort over ethics. This isn't courage. It's the bare minimum of decency. Maybe, Marcus said, but you're still doing it. You could have fled. People in your position do, sometimes. Take their kids and run. But you're facing it, and you're making sure your daughter has a stable life even though it means being apart from her. That counts for something. They went through the intake process together. Marcus escorting her through security, through the humiliating inventory of her possessions, through the paperwork that officially transferred custody of her freedom to the federal government. He stayed until the very end, until a stern-faced guard with keys jangling at her belt came to escort Sarah deeper into the facility. Take care of yourself, Marcus said, extending his hand for a formal shake. And your daughter, she's going to be okay. Kids are resilient. I hope you're right, Sarah said, gripping his hand briefly. Thank you for your kindness today. It meant more than you know." Then he was gone, and Sarah was alone with the guard, walking down a corridor that smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. Each step took her further from Emma, further from the life she'd known, deeper into the consequences of choices she'd made and choices she'd failed to make. But with each step, she also moved closer to redemption, closer to the day when she could look her daughter in the eye without shame, closer to becoming the mother Emma deserved. The cell was small and cold, with a narrow bed and a single window that looked out onto a concrete courtyard. Sarah sat on the edge of the mattress, the springs creaking under her weight, and allowed herself one moment of complete despair. She put her face in her hands and sobbed. For Emma, for the childhood she'd stolen from her daughter, for the years they'd lost, for the trust that would take so long to rebuild. But then she thought of Emma's words, "So she can fix things." The Dr. Barbie, chosen with a child's wisdom, was a symbol of healing, of making broken things whole again. If Emma could believe in fixing what was broken, then Sarah had to believe it too. She pulled out the notebook the guards had allowed her to keep and began to write the first of many letters. "My dearest Emma, today was the hardest day of my life, but also the most important. I want you to know why I made the choice I did. 18 months. She could survive 18 months. For Emma, she could survive anything." The seasons changed outside Sarah's small window. Fall gave way to winter, winter to spring. The letters became her lifeline. Emma's careful printing evolving into more confident cursive, her drawings becoming more detailed, her questions becoming more complex. Christine sent photos. Emma at her 9th birthday party, Emma in her school play, Emma holding up a science fair ribbon. Sarah read each letter dozens of times, memorized every detail of every photograph. She attended every therapy session offered, took every class available, worked in the prison library and read everything she could about rebuilding trust with children after trauma. She became, in those months of enforced isolation, the person she should have been all along: thoughtful, accountable, purposeful. The trial came and went. Sarah testified for 3 days, facing Richard across the courtroom, telling the truth about what she'd seen and suspected, about the conversations she'd overheard, about the documents she'd found. Richard's lawyer tried to paint her as a scorned wife seeking revenge, but Sarah's calm, factual testimony spoke for itself. When the guilty verdicts came down, all counts, all defendants, Sarah felt no satisfaction, only a deep weariness. Justice had been served, but it couldn't undo the harm that had been done. Thousands of people had lost their savings. Families had been destroyed, and Emma had lost 18 months with her mother. The day of her release arrived with little fanfare. Sarah walked out of the detention center wearing the same black blazer, carrying a small bag of possessions, blinking in the bright sunshine of a May morning. Christine's car was waiting in the parking lot, and through the window, Sarah could see Emma in the back seat. Her daughter had changed so much. Taller, older, more guarded. The 7-year-old who'd cried in the toy store had become a 9-year-old who'd learned to protect her heart. Sarah's hands shook as she approached the car, terrified that Emma would reject her, that 18 months had been too long, that the damage was irreparable. The door opened, and Emma stepped out, clutching something to her chest. The Dr. Barbie, worn now, her white coat faded from being held so many times. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, mother and daughter, separated by time and circumstance and consequences, connected by a love that had survived everything. "Hi, baby," Sarah said, her voice cracking on the words. Emma's face crumpled, and she launched herself forward into Sarah's arms. They collided in a tangle of limbs and tears, holding each other with 18 months of longing and pain and love. "You came back," Emma sobbed into Sarah's shoulder. "You promised and you came back. I will always come back to you," Sarah whispered fiercely. "Always. No matter what. You're my whole heart, Emma." That never changed, not for one single day. They stayed like that for a long time, making up for lost moments, for birthdays celebrated through letters, for scraped knees and school plays and bedtime stories that Sarah had missed. Eventually, they pulled apart, and Emma held up the Barbie. "She helped fix things," Emma said softly. "Like you said she would. She helped me remember that broken things can get better." Sarah pulled her daughter close again, looking over Emma's head at Christine, who stood near the car with tears streaming down her face. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be trust to rebuild, wounds to heal, a relationship to reconstruct in the aftermath of trauma. They'd need therapy, patience, and time. So much time. But they had time now. They had each other. And sometimes, Sarah thought, holding her daughter in the parking lot filled with hope and second chances, sometimes that was enough to begin again. The pink aisle of the toy store felt like a lifetime ago, a before and after moment that had changed everything. But Emma had carried that doll through the darkness, and Sarah had carried the memory of her daughter's face, and both had survived. That was the thing about love, Sarah realized. It couldn't prevent pain, couldn't shield you from the consequences of your choices. But it could sustain you through the darkest moments. It could be the light that guided you home. "Come on," Sarah said, standing and taking Emma's hand, bigger now, but still fitting perfectly in hers. "Let's go get that ice cream I promised you. We have a lot to catch up on." Emma smiled. A real smile, tentative but genuine. "Mint chip?" "Mint chip," Sarah confirmed. "Your favorite." Together, they walked toward the car, toward Christine, toward whatever came next. The Barbie stayed tucked under Emma's arm, a plastic reminder that even broken things could heal, that promises kept mattered more than promises broken, and that love, real, fierce, unconditional love, could survive even the longest separations. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the life Sarah had imagined for them. But it was real. It was theirs. And it was, finally, a beginning.